All right. So today we're going to be talking about the box, right? So following up from our discussion initially, we talked about having a toolkit, right, that we can go to if we want some desired results. So in box A, right, we have one which is for performance enhancement. Right? And then in box B, we have something basically for longevity, right? And in our previous chat, you mentioned that you can't really have both per se.
Yeah, you can't pursue two goals at the same time. You can't be losing weight and gaining weight in the same time, although it is conditional, right? Because you can sort of gain lean muscle mass and you can lose fat, so you can reduce your body weight, although it's still possible to preserve and even increase lean muscle mass. Yeah, well, again, conditional. Yeah, so I was given that particular example that I read in David Sinclair's book about aging, why we age and why we should not. And in the first or second chapter, he was given the example about that primitive, supposedly to be like the mythical first organism, the first species ever existing. And it had only two genes. One is for the growth, development, proliferation, and that gene is on when there's a surplus of calories and there's a beneficial environment around it. There's a lot of nutrients and the radiation is not that bad, so we're doing fine, so we can replicate, grow, progress, and so on and so forth. And the second gene, it has a dual function. It turns off or switches off the first gene, hence it stops proliferation. And secondly, it sort of puts the whole entire system into the frozen state or the conservation. Yeah, so it's a less requirement and less intake of the nutrients, and of course less expenditures of energy and more efficient way of producing energy. So the cell will use up all the metabolites, all the byproducts, whatever are left from sort of the unfinished business, right? And they will further process it and they will squeeze out energy from that and will make it so efficient that, as we have it in the most developed organisms now, just break down whatever substance into the water and CO2. Yeah, and you excrete, you derive as much energy in the form of the ATP as much as possible. Okay, and this is like sort of a never-ending cycle. And in the same time, it promotes the autophagy, right? So you're gonna clear up all the junk, all the rubbish, those little sacks, the bags, and the sacks. S-A...
C-K-S.
Yes.
I was, because when you went sex first, I went...
No.
Okay.
Different one, that goes after that. You gotta clean your house first.
Of course. Okay. So
yeah,
all the sacks of toxic...
Rubbish, yeah. So, I mean, this is a very... what is that word? Not the allegorical, like a metaphorical sort of description, yeah, but there are specific compartments in the cell, okay, which contain the junk, and the autophagy is the mechanism when we eat it up, okay. So it's one of the examples, and why I was talking about autophagy, because this is very important, and some of the latest views on the cardiomyopathy and how the patients are generally gonna do, whether they're gonna deteriorate or they have a better chances for survival and maybe a longer lifespan. The deciding factor on the cellular level, by large and at large, is the ability to perform autophagy. Of course, it's a mitochondrial function, but apart from that, is cell, the cardiac myocyte, capable of clearing up itself, do the autophagy, or the process is impaired. And that will define how the cardiomyopathy will clinically progress in future for that particular individual. And hence, possible therapeutic modalities can be also that can target potentially that particular aspect. You know, so by promoting the autophagy, definitely you're gonna improve the outcomes. Now, to what extent, to how many percent, you need to calculate. I mean, you need to do the study, you need to do the observational study, and then it has to be a placebo-controlled study for everything. If you are introducing any type of treatment modality, you need to have a group that you're gonna compare with.
Like a reference group.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So these are the standards. These are the standards in science, at least in medical science, because we live in the era of the so-called evidence-based medicine. So
yes, definitely.
There are different levels of evidence, and of course, the goal is to achieve the highest level of evidence and get the sort of all the proof, you know, that your hypothesis works. So it's on the way. You know, it's one of the examples. So and that's about the disease, but about the lifestyle and planning your lifespan and health and lifespan management.